Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a really interesting request, one that came in from a listener, all about autism,
Mm.
specifically the experiences of women and non-binary folks.
Mhm.
They sent over a ton of stuff, articles, blog posts, even just, website menus,
Wow.
which I think speaks to just how much there is to unpack here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So really the mission of this deep dive is to explore the intersection of autism, misogyny, and ableism, and really kind of hone in on that phenomenon of gaslighting.
Yeah, it's fascinating how often these topics kind of come up together. It's like trying to untie a really complex knot.
Exactly. And to start untangling it, maybe we should start with just defining our terms here.
Yeah.
What do we actually mean by gaslighting? It's a term that we hear a lot, but what's it actually look like in practice?
So gaslighting is this form of manipulation where someone tries to make you doubt your own sanity or your memories or even like your perceptions. And it's like slowly chipping away at your sense of reality until you're left feeling confused and unsure of yourself.
So it's not just disagreeing with someone or having a different perspective.
Right.
It's more insidious.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about intentionally undermining someone's confidence and making them question their own judgment.
Hmm.
So think about, being told you're overreacting or imagining things when you know something isn't right.
Or being told you agreed to something when you know you didn't,
Exactly.
like rewriting history.
Exactly.
And the sources that our listeners sent in point to this happening disproportionately to autistic women and non-binary individuals.
Right. And I think part of that vulnerability stems from the societal stereotypes surrounding autism. There's this misconception that autistic people lack social awareness or are always misinterpreting social cues.
Right.
And this often leads to their experiences being dismissed, which makes them, easier targets for this kind of manipulation.
Because their concerns are often brushed aside, they might start to doubt themselves even more,
Yeah.
thinking like, maybe I am misreading things.
Precisely. And this can create this like vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Difficulties recognizing gaslighting, which sometimes, stem from the social and communication differences associated with autism,
Yeah.
can actually make individuals more susceptible to the manipulation.
Hmm.
They may not even realize what's happening until, significant damage is done.
And then to make matters worse, or even more complicated, the sources highlight how misogyny and ableism compound the problem.
Right.
It's not just about individual bad actors.
Yeah.
It's about these larger systems of oppression that create the conditions for gaslighting to flourish.
Think about how patriarchal structures so often silence women's voices and dismiss their concerns.
Right.
When you combine that with, harmful gender stereotypes that paint women as overly sensitive or irrational, and then you layer on top of that societal misconceptions about autism, it creates like this perfect storm for targeting these individuals.
One article even used the term weaponized vulnerability to describe this phenomenon,
Yeah.
which is a powerful image,
It is
but also kind of unsettling.
very unsettling.
So we've laid out how gaslighting operates and how autistic women and non-binary individuals can be particularly vulnerable to it.
Right.
But what are the actual consequences here?
Yeah.
It's not just about feeling a little hurt or confused.
Right? No, not at all. The consequences can be really far-reaching and long-lasting, and the emotional toll is significant. Yeah, and we're talking about increased anxiety, depression, plummeting self-esteem.
And the sources also emphasize how gaslighting erodes trust,
Mm-hmm.
not just in others, but also in oneself.
Exactly. And this raises a crucial question. How do you rebuild that trust after you've been repeatedly told that your reality is wrong and your feelings are invalid?
Right.
It's a monumental challenge.
And what's heartbreaking is that this erosion of trust creates this barrier to seeking help.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine feeling like you can't even trust yourself,
Right.
let alone a therapist or a support group. You might worry about being dismissed or blamed or further invalidated if you do speak up.
And that fear is totally understandable, especially given how often the experiences of autistic individuals are minimized or misunderstood.
Right.
It's this tragic irony.
Yeah.
The people who most need support are often the ones most afraid to reach out.
It makes you wonder how many people are suffering in silence because of this.
Yeah.
And what's even more concerning is that this isn't just an individual issue.
Right.
It's deeply intertwined with societal structures and power dynamics.
Absolutely. We can't talk about gaslighting without acknowledging the role of those power dynamics,
Yeah, it's like this issue's woven into the fabric of how we understand and interact with each other.
Exactly. We can't talk about gaslighting without acknowledging those power dynamics.
Yeah.
Misogyny, ableism, even racism.
Right.
These systems create these hierarchies that make certain groups much more vulnerable to manipulation and abuse.
You brought up this concept of the double bind earlier,
Mm-hmm.
which is a powerful way to illustrate this dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
One article you sent had this quote from an autistic woman describing it perfectly.
Oh, wow.
She said, if I try to mask my autistic traits, people accuse me of being deceptive or inauthentic. But if I embrace my neurodiversity, I'm labeled as too much or not fitting in.
Wow.
It's like they're trapped between a rock and a hard place.
That's the essence of the double bind, right? It's this no-win situation where someone is judged and criticized regardless of what they do, and it's exhausting to constantly navigate these conflicting expectations.
Speaking of exhaustion, one blog post you sent mentioned something called autistic burnout.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever felt completely drained after trying to fit in or meet social expectations? That feeling of being just overwhelmed and depleted
Yeah.
could be autistic burnout, and the sources suggest that this burnout can be even worse for those experiencing gaslighting.
Absolutely. Autistic burnout is this state of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion that can result from that constant pressure of masking and trying to conform to societal expectations.
Hmm.
And it's not just, everyday fatigue. It's a much deeper sense of depletion that can impact every aspect of your life.
So it's not just about feeling tired, it's like your whole system's overloaded.
Right.
And you're running on fumes.
Exactly. And when you layer gaslighting on top of that existing burnout, it's like adding fuel to the fire. Imagine trying to maintain this facade of normalcy while simultaneously being told that your perceptions and experiences are wrong.
Right.
It's no wonder that autistic individuals are more vulnerable to this kind of burnout.
The sources mention increased difficulty with social interaction, sensory overload, even physical health problems.
Wow.
As a result of this burnout, it's a stark reminder that gaslighting isn't just about hurt feelings. It has a tangible impact on people's lives.
Yeah. Their ability to work, maintain relationships, even just function in the world can be severely compromised.
Right.
It's a real and serious issue with potentially devastating consequences.
So we've talked about the problem, the impact now, what can be done.
Yeah.
What are some ways to address gaslighting, especially in the context of autism, misogyny, and ableism?
Well, awareness is key. The more we understand about gaslighting and its insidious nature, the better equipped we'll be to identify it and challenge it.
And part of that is educating ourselves about autism and neurodiversity.
Mm-hmm.
We need to challenge those harmful stereotypes and create more inclusive and accepting environments.
Absolutely. We need to move away from this idea of a single normal and embrace the diversity of human experience.
Yeah.
Everyone experiences the world differently, and that's something to be celebrated, not stigmatized.
Several sources also highlighted the importance of self-advocacy,
Yeah.
encouraging autistic women and non-binary individuals to trust their instincts to speak up when something feels wrong, to seek out supportive communities where they feel safe and validated.
Yeah. Self-advocacy is crucial, but it can be challenging, especially when you've been conditioned to doubt yourself. That's why creating those safe spaces is so important, places where people feel empowered to share their experiences without fear of judgment or dismissal.
And those spaces can take many forms, right? Support groups, online forums, therapy.
Exactly. These spaces can provide a sense of community, shared experience, and validation that can be incredibly healing. And they can help individuals rebuild that trust in themselves and others and develop strategies for coping with gaslighting and its effects.
It's about finding your tribe, people who get it, who've been there.
Yeah.
And beyond individual support, it's also essential to address those systems that perpetuate these harmful dynamics, calling out misogyny and ableism. When we see it, advocating for policies that protect marginalized groups and supporting organizations working to create a more just and equitable world.
We need to move beyond simply acknowledging the problem. We need to actively work to dismantle the structures that allow gaslighting to thrive. It's about shifting those power dynamics, amplifying marginalized voices, and challenging the status quo.
And on a more personal level, we can all practice empathy and active listening.
Yeah.
Believing people when they share their experiences, validating their feelings, and offering support without judgment.
Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply listen with an open heart and an open mind. It's about creating space for someone to feel heard and seen without trying to fix them or offer unsolicited advice.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? What are the key takeaways from this deep dive into gaslighting, particularly as it affects autistic women and non-binary individuals?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's crucial to remember that gaslighting is a serious issue, particularly for this group, and understanding the interplay of misogyny and ableism is essential to combating it. Recognizing the systemic factors at play can help us be more informed and effective allies.
It's not enough to just address individual instances of gaslighting. We need to tackle those root causes,
Right.
the societal structures that allow it to flourish.
Right. It's about looking at the bigger picture and understanding how these issues are interconnected.
And while we've painted, kind of a stark picture here, it's important to remember that there's hope.
Yeah.
The very fact that you requested this deep dive, that you're engaging with these complex issues is a step in the right direction.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
The more we understand about this phenomenon, the better equipped we'll be to protect ourselves and support others.
Yeah.
And the more we talk about these issues, the less power they hold.
Going through all the sources you sent, I was struck by how many of them included links to hotlines,
Yeah.
support networks, advocacy organizations. It's clear there's a whole network out there ready to help.
There really is. It's encouraging to see this growing movement to raise awareness about gaslighting and its impact on these communities. More and more people are speaking out, sharing their stories, and demanding change.
It's inspiring to see people coming together to support each other and challenge these harmful dynamics. There's strength in numbers,
Yeah.
in knowing you're not alone.
Absolutely. It's a powerful reminder that even in the face of adversity, resilience and hope can prevail, and that collective action, both big and small, can make a real difference.
So if you're listening to this and something resonates with you, if you're feeling that pang of recognition, I urge you to explore those resources. Don't let fear or shame hold you back from seeking support.
Yeah.
There are people out there who want to help, who understand what you're going through.
Remember, your experiences are valid, your feelings matter, and you deserve to be heard and believed. Don't let anyone, including yourself, tell you otherwise.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into autism, gaslighting, misogyny, and ableism, but we've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
There's so much more to learn and explore about this complex and nuanced topic.
And that's precisely why it's so important to keep these conversations going.
Right.
To continue to challenge those assumptions, to listen to diverse perspectives, and to work towards creating a world where everyone feels safe, respected, and empowered.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this thought.
Yeah.
What if, instead of questioning ourselves, we started questioning the systems and structures that make gaslighting possible in the first place?
Yeah.
What if we channeled our energy into building a world where vulnerability is met with compassion, not exploitation?
That's a powerful vision, and it's one that we can all contribute to, one conversation, one action, one step at a time.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's giving you some new insights and sparked some important conversations. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.